So first, let me say, no, this is not a good situation. It's always bad to hear about any creative just getting hurt. And Sony laying off around 900 people that work at PlayStation Studios sucks. It does. But I'm wondering if we can just kind of look at the potential silver linings. If we look at the reasons they did this and potential results and even examples for the future, it might actually, I don't want to say make things for the better, but you might get some good from it. And before we can really touch the good, let's look at the situation and reasons it's happening. If you're not a business person, I'm going to summarize this all for you, basically saying, situation, Sony laid off 8% of PlayStation Studios, which is around 900 people. And this included people you might not know, like the Fire Sprite teams, creative and tech people that support PlayStation Studios, and even closing down a London studio. But the names also you might know really well, like Insomniac Games, Naughty Dog, Guerilla Games. Those are studios that handle big IPs like the Horizon series, Last of Us, Spider-Man. Those are huge studios. And I'm really shocked to hear about that. And they're canceling other games too. Like there was supposed to be like a Twisted Metal live service game that they canceled. And also recently, it didn't just begin with this. Like Last of Us Factions, this online Last of Us game got canceled. In recent months, there was Mediatonic, the people that do Dreams. They got a lot of layoffs. Bungie got a lot of layoffs, the Destiny people. It's not a new situation, but why is this happening? At least at PlayStation's side. I'll put things on screen, but the long and short of it is reason number one, sales. The PlayStation 5 was apparently supposed to have like 4 million more units than they sold in the past year. And because they didn't do that, their net value, I guess, dropped by like $10 billion, which is not something to sneeze at. This isn't a Microsoft situation where they're a $1 trillion company. This is a $1 billion company that lost a massive chunk in their value. And that's a big deal. And I guess the senior Sony VP was saying like the PS5 is in its latter half of its life cycle, which totally makes sense. But I think the bigger reason about this, with that in mind, is reason number two, which is the budgets. Game budgets are getting wild these days. And this is the main thing that we might actually get some good out of, with this kind of being really looked at and thought about. Because there's like the upcoming new Sony boss, he was saying the dev costs can be improved. When he was looking at all the studios and meeting all of them, he's like, I just think there is room for improvement with these development costs while still keeping the quality. Spider-Man 2, Sony's last big AAA first-party game, supposedly cost over $300 million to make. That's insane. And then the previous big three, let's say Last of Us 2, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, each of those games took like over 5 years to develop, and they cost over $200 million to make. And with Spider-Man, it's like it jumped another almost 50 million to 100 million. That's a lot of money, and that's not something that they can sustain. And even Jim Ryan, the head of PlayStation right now, as he's going out the door, is saying we need to do this to ready ourselves for the future. So that's why this is happening. But now you might be thinking, okay, so what's the good? What could... It's hard, man, but let me tell you, the first potential good that comes from this, focus and schedule. Focus and schedule for PlayStation is really important. And if they could really improve that with like looking at, say, Naughty Dog, where back in the PlayStation 4 era and PlayStation 3 era, they released all of the Uncharted series, Last of Us 1 and 2, they were knocking it out of the park. And now their last game was in 2019 with Last of Us Part 2. I'm not counting the remakes. I'm not counting the remasters, whatever you want to call them. That was in 2019. Days Gone, another first-party studio of theirs. That was 2019. Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch. That game was in 2020. And we still don't even know what that team is doing next and what Naughty Dog is doing next. We are waiting for those announcements, and that is something I think PlayStation is looking to do. So you might get more frequent updates, more frequent games in development, which might sound like, wait a minute, so if they're scaling back, how can you say that they are going to be faster? We look at Insomniac, who just experienced these layoffs. And in the PlayStation 5 era, you see them kind of pull off a Naughty Dog. They released Miles Morales. They released Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. They released Spidey 2, which the Spidey games have a big budget. But Ratchet and Clank, that was a project under $100 million. And that is something we might see these studios get to pursue a bit more, to scale back their projects, to scale back the development of them, and let's have some safe games that we can release for maybe cheaper to sell more and have a less budget. But wait, why the hell would they make these less employees and time development games and these more condensed adventures like Uncharted Legacy, like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, like these other things? Well, that would be the second good that comes from this, being accessibility. There was a recent big success that PlayStation just had, and even this upcoming head of PlayStation that's about to be, Todoroki, he was saying, like, we are getting ready to release our stuff on PC and mobile. We have to expand. And a great evidence of that is what PlayStation just did with Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 is a game that a lot of people, you might have heard of them talking about, and it is PlayStation Studios' first game that released day and date on Steam, and it is killing it on there. Killing it so hard that they have to cut down how many people could be on their servers. They raised it now, but it's just wild that they had to do that. And for the record, this is like a AA level game. This is not indie. This is not AAA. This is a AA level game that, yes, was in development for many years. But it's also a game that sold for $40. It's a game that sold for $40 and it released on Steam day and date. Two things I would never have thought PlayStation would do anything like that. But look at the success that this just did. And when we look at also something like PS Plus, a lot of people might want these games to launch day and date on, PlayStation Plus, like kind of Game Pass does. But the issue with that is they already have so many people. And when you crunch the numbers, it's kind of making the same amount that Game Pass does. And they're doing sales better than maybe Xbox games do. So it's like, I don't see that happening, but it could. It could be a part of their new strategy coming up where they have some kind of, they make that part of the premium tier. I don't know. But that could be a possibility. The idea here is that Helldivers 2 is really opening their eyes to certain things. And this new head of PlayStation is really starting to see the possibilities of that too. So if you're somebody that's not even on PlayStation and you're watching this, cool. Thanks. But you might be able to play their stuff day and date on PC. So congratulations. You don't have to play a PS5 because you could just play their game. Like, that's another benefit, is the accessibility of it. So some really good benefits to this could be some smaller and more focused games that are under 100 million or maybe under 150 million, just scaling back the budgets of these games, promoting them right to be able to have more of these games more frequently, and maybe even creating these passion projects, like making smaller ideas like that don't have to be these huge $200 to $300 million budgets. But the bigger question is, even if they do that, even if they scale up the platforms that these games release on, the biggest thing PlayStation has always had is that quality stamp. They have had such great ratings, and they are known as the people that are going to deliver you the most quality, narrative, high-praised, high-budget experiences. So is that going to change? And with this strategy changing, they might be adapting this strategy that Xbox is doing. This is a strategy that they're doing that kind of scales some of their games down. They have all these different types of scopes, being super paper thin to super high budget. Does that work for them? You can watch that video to find out. And if you want to help me, like and subscribe if you want to keep speculating, expressing, and connecting.